Hey, Derek.
Hey, David.
It's so good to talk to you again. You know, last episode we talked about Henry Winkler's famous, or maybe infamous, jump the shark, and it made me think, you know, Derek and I should talk about the ways in which TV series that we watched got a little bit better over time. Didn't necessarily jump the shark. They did what we call grow the beard.
Yes.
And I thought we could do a growing the beard episode.
Yes. This would be a fun gimmicks bonus episode. Super casual. I have no idea what you're going to bring up. So I'm excited to do this. So yeah. I guess if you didn't listen to it, Happy Days, we talked about the jumping the shark one, which I imagine if you're listening to gimmicks, you know what all these terms mean. But I guess if in case you don't, you know, jumping the shark is like the term that people use to signify shows going downhill, that like the moment that a show went downhill, or the general era where a show went downhill. And the opposite of that, which is colloquially known as growing the beard, is when a show, when it's sort of like, oh, this is the moment that the show clicks into place, or this is the season when the show gets good, or this is sort of the general era where the show changes. So like, you know, that general idea of like, oh yeah, the show's great. It takes a little while to get going, or the beginning is a little rocky, or it takes 3 seasons, but after like season 4, then it gets really good. Like that sort of conversation, because that's literally just the inverse of jumping the shark. And I think for a lot of people, like many of their favorite shows are exactly that kind of conversation. You know, yeah, always so a little asterisk on a recommendation that you give people.
Yeah, if you've ever recommended a show for someone, but you say you just have to live through this long, Derek and I are going to share our favorite versions of that with each other, just for funsies.
Growing the beard, if you don't know, that comes from Riker growing his beard on Star Trek: The Next Generation. So like the first couple seasons, is it the first 2 seasons, I think, right?
It's in the middle of season 2 when he develops the beard.
Yeah. So it's like that's, and like a lot. Yeah, Jonathan Frakes was completely, you know, barefaced in the not barefaced, unfortunately. But his clean shaven in the first season and a half, and like it's very famously known that like the first season or 2 of TNG, a little rocky. And then the show, you know, becomes sort of something. What you remember TNG as really happens around season 3, especially. And so, you know, people just remark like sort of like if you're watching an episode where Riker doesn't have a beard, it's more than likely going to be one of the bad early ones. And that just became the sort of colloquial term for when a show just. The moment when a show gets good. So in case you didn't know, I think that's like the most famous example. I'm going to imagine that neither of us had that on our list for personal favorites, but that's like one of the general most well-known TV ones in general.
We talked about this on other Star Trek episodes. TNG, I wasn't like a huge fan of it. So it didn't make my cut of my favorite things where the series got so much better.
This is hard to, I didn't make like a list. It's more just sort of general ideas that I had. 'Cause there's also like asterisks next to some of these too sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
It's not because it's not a cut and dry thing, I think.
Agreed. I have a couple examples that I feel more cut and dry about, but I have some that I'm like, yeah, some vagueness happened here and it never actually quite got good, but just got better than it used to be.
Right. And there's some that I will challenge people where it's sort of like, you know what? I actually don't think the first season is as bad as you say it is, but we can get into that.
True. I want to get us started, and I picked some that I knew were not going to be on your list. So the first one I know is not going to be a Derek pick, but the first one that I have selected is the reality television series RuPaul's Drag Race, which in season 3 got rid of the other judges on the panel and introduced the then constant for the show, Michelle Visage, a friend of RuPaul Charles, who came on to be a permanent judge, and an extra level of acidity and heat in the show, which was desperately needed from the judges that were there before who just weren't the right vibe. This is where the format of the reality series sort of stabilizes. They start to represent new types of drag, so it's not all pageant drag, and it is just a genuinely more fun series to watch from season 3 onwards. And nice. I thought that in terms of growing the beard, what better place to start than a drag race competition?
That's such a cool answer, because I don't know that you necessarily always think of this for reality shows or reality competitions, but it makes sense because like, yeah, you kind of need like, you know, first season of American Idol had Brian Dunkelman there, and then they had to figure out that they didn't need him. No offense to the guy, but like
It wasn't
they had
there.
right. Like there's things like that in reality TV too, where it's just marrying down and figuring out the format and everything. So that totally makes sense. Yeah, that's really cool. That's a good choice.
Yeah, and like Doug, turn off your podcast listening device. But first season of Survivor, hard to watch for me because the host, Jeff Probst, who's there from the beginning, but he narrates the challenges being like, oh, look, they're having trouble. Like, he's just not into it. It's a little hard to watch as a more modern Survivor viewer.
That's so funny. That's really funny. Okay, then I'll also counter one that isn't on your list. Bojack Horseman, I think, is a really interesting one because it's not a full season. It's just like the first half of season 1.
Okay.
But I think that the first half of season 1 of Bojack Horseman, not good. Like, I think that it does great setup for future things. Like, it sets up the world really well and it sets up the characters really well. That it's not funny, I think, and it's like the worst kind of, it's like what you expect from modern adult animated comedies in a bad way. And then this is a time where it's sort of like you get to a particular episode, which is like the 7th episode of the season. And then that episode is like kind of what the show is going forward. And I think it's a funny scenario because it's not like this was a show that was like running week to week on network TV and they were tinkering and figuring it out over like 22 episodes. It was like, this is a season that they like kind of crafted all at once and then dropped all at once. So I think that part of it was maybe a little bit intentional, that it's maybe like tricking you into like, this is just a silly, fun show with like a little bit of cynicism, to then like, no, here's some like real, honest, like emotional gut punch stuff. And that's really what this show is going to be getting into. And it kind of gets into really deep conversations about like what it means, what type of person you are and how you affect other people in your lives and how other people's perception of you changes how you perceive yourself and vice versa, like things like that. And it's a really, really great episode, but like it's so hard because it isn't just like, oh, the first 6 episodes are okay and then it gets really good. It's more like the first 6 episodes are bad, but you also can't not watch them because it's really like important to setting up character dynamics. And if you started with the 7th episode, it also would be a bad beginning to the show. It's like, it makes it really hard to recommend. And like 6 episodes aren't like, that's not the same as like, don't watch, this whole season's bad, but there's 6 episodes that I think are just really, really rough. And so it's like,
ouch.
Like can turn you off of the type of people that I think really would appreciate Bojack Horseman and that haven't seen it would specifically be the type of people that would be turned off by the comedic tone and the type of irreverence and type of jokes that are in the first 6 episodes. And I don't know. I find that just sort of a weird situation for that show.
This is super good to know because I've always kind of wanted to get into Bojack Horseman, and part of that is our friendship. Like, I know it's a very important series for you, and I'd love to cover it on pod. But I do think that if I had independently watched it and not told you I was watching it, I probably wouldn't have gotten this advice. So now I'm really happy to have it because I might give up at 4 episodes. That's about like, I'll give anything 4 episodes. Good luck. It's 30 minutes, right? It's 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's a 30-minute show. Oh, but still a lot of people did though. And I remember like the reviews for the first season were bad because I think reviewers only had like the first 4 or 6 episodes. So like if you look up, I know Rotten Tomatoes isn't everything, but like if you look up the scores, it's so funny because I think like the first season, it's like a 50 or 60% score. And then every other season is like 90 to 100% or whatever. And it's like, because like the last half of that season, amazing and on par with the rest of the show. But the first half and what reviewers had were so bad. Like, and a lot of people dipped out and only jumped back on after hearing like, no, but like it actually gets like really, really good. Like it's just so fucking weird that happened with that show.
Wow. Incredible. Well, then I will also pick one that mid-season 1 had the sort of growing the beard moment. And it is one I truly have no idea how you're going to react when I say these words. But my next pick is Cougar Town.
Okay.
I gotta tell you,
so I have no opinion.
Honestly. I loved the beginning of Cougar Town, but it's like a fun film. Like, it should have been a Courtney Cox like rom-com movie, not a television series, because the sort of founding principle of the show just could not be sustainable, which is that they're like, it's like Hot in Cleveland, but almost more of a drama version of it rather than a comedy. And by episode 7 of season 1, they have completely abandoned the premise and they are just having a good fucking time. It's like Sex in the City in the suburbs, and I am seated in here for it, to the point that they considered renaming the show in season 2 because it just wasn't about the premise anymore. It wasn't about young men interested in older hot women. It was just about hot women having fun in the suburbs.
Okay. I did not know that was like the sort of arc of the show. That's really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. So my asterisk on this is that the first 7 episodes are fine. They're perfectly watchable. They're just a different series, and it doesn't become the right series for television until afterwards.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That totally makes sense. You know what? I'm gonna throw out one that I think is probably on both of our lists, or at least orbiting, or you probably predicted I would have it, because I sort of agree with you. It's a similar situation, I think, with Buffy.
Oh yeah, okay.
Because I think, you know, the narrative of Buffy is that the first season is bad, and then season 2 it gets good.
Yeah,
and I don't agree with that.
I
think it's more of a Cougar Town situation where the first season is just a very different show. Like I remember when I watched Buffy for the first time, I knew going into it, people were always telling me like, just got to get through the first season. It's really bad. It's just really rough. First season's really rough. I watched the first fucking episode and I'm like, this is the best show ever made. This is my favorite show. Yeah. So my shit from the first episode. And I think it's because the first season, it's, you know, it's a lot more like the show's always pretty low budget, but like it doesn't know how to use its budget yet. So it like feels even more low budget in the first season. It's very B movie. Not Jerry Seinfeld B movie, but like an old school B movie. And like, it's like B horror and very like camp monsters and creatures and very over the top, like evil villains and weird shit happening. And also like very structurally very similar to any sort of supernatural or sci-fi, you know, drama that you would be seeing on TV in the mid 90s. And for me, all of that sort of like, that still works for me. I can still love a show that is all of those things. But I think what makes it so special though, that I still am sort of like, I can't get behind season 1 is quote unquote bad, is because what Buffy nails is the characters right from the get-go. All of the main cast are exactly who they are from the very first episode. Their relationships are like perfectly tuned from the very first one. And that's a thing that's very different from so many other shows that have rocky first seasons. Like any Star Trek example, like almost every Star Trek show has that problem. And a big part of it is because they often take a while to figure out what the actual characters are. They'll be archetypes at the beginning and then have to sort of tune into what the characters actually are there for, what their roles are, what the more interesting relationships are. Buffy had that on lock from the first moment of the first episode. Right. And that's what makes that first season, I think, still sing, even when it's not the same tonally as the rest of the season and isn't like as smartly written in like structural ways as later seasons are. The character stuff is always really well done and they're always really written really, really well. And it's still like smart in that way and how well conceived they are.
I completely agree, Derek. Buffy was on my predictions list for you. And I totally agree with you. I have never understood people who say that season 1 is skippable. The only skippable episodes of Buffy for me, I think, is in season 2. Because I don't need to watch the one where Xander becomes a fish. It's just I skip it.
Oh no, I love that one. So fun.
Sorry,
Derek.
About? It's not for me. This is also an insight into who Derek and I are as men. I just don't need it. I've seen it enough times. I don't need to watch it again. Yeah. But season 1 for me, I think if you're going to call it a problem, and I think it's a feature of season 1 is that the character dialogue is better than the vampire can be in season 1. By season 2, they can be on the same level. Like a barb throwing between Cordelia and Xander is at its peak in season 1 and it will stay on its peak forever. Mm-hmm. The Darla, the angel, the master of it all doesn't quite get up to the Cordelia level.
That's true. Like the master, you know, cool, you know, fun makeup and stuff like that. But like he's not a good Buffy villain compared to other Buffy villains. Like there's nothing really to him. You know, well, I think that's the downside of season 1. You know,
he's not a good Buffy villain compared to Cordelia. That's
right.
Like I already have a bitchy queen at home. I don't need a bitchy queen in the sewer.
Exactly. Can I also add? I know I've just been talking a lot, but I want to have a related sort of thing with this. I do think for Angel, that's the show, interestingly, that I do kind of feel like season 1 of Angel is kind of like, that is the true, like, you really have to get through season 1.
I agree with
that. Because, and that's less because it's even like the quality of it. I think that like, there are really abysmally bad episodes of Angel season 1, but like generally it's not like it's a bad season. It's just not what the show
Angel.
is.
Yeah.
It is very much sort of like a pale imitation of Buffy. If you were to predict what an Angel spinoff would be, you kind of get Angel season 1. But the show really, really sings once it kind of figures out how to have a very specific separate identity and sort of, heart than Buffy did. And like what it's the ideas that it's going after and sort of the general things that it's talking about. And like, it's sort of like existential questions that the show has that like makes it what it is. That doesn't really happen until like the very end of season 1 and into season 2. And then it just becomes a very different show that like almost doesn't even feel like, doesn't really feel in the same universe as Buffy. So I think that's a better scenario where it's like, don't base your impression of Angel on the first season, because what makes the show good is how different it is from the first season by season 2.
Agreed. Yeah. It also sort of sheds its procedural skin, which I think it was like very comfortable in the first season. Again, I love Hot Cop Lady. Sorry, I don't remember your name, Hot Cop Lady, but she's great. But she's just, she's not good. She's not good. She's not good for Angel. That's the problem, is that like Lorne is the beard and you don't get Lorne until season 2.
Right. Exactly.
I have another one that could have been on either of our lists, but it's Community. It's another mid-season 1. And for me, it's pretty much when Britta becomes an activist. I am seated for Community from here on forward. And when Britta's just sort of a sex object for Jeff Winger to get, it's less fun than when Britta is like the worst feminist ever.
Yeah, I do. I go back and forth on Community because I still think the first season is really, really fun, and I love a lot of it. And I think that's another show like kind of like Buffy, where people talk about it like the first season's trash, and it's like, oh no, it's actually really smart, and all the bones of Unity are there. But I do think it is a different show. You're right. Like it's a very different show when it's Joel McHale trying to get into Britta's pants. Like that's, and Chevy Chase is also there. Like that's what the show is at the beginning. Yeah. And then they kind of like figure out like, no, this truly is an ensemble, and we have some of the greatest living comedic actors here, and we can utilize all of them and make them specific, like very particularly different characters. And like, I think, Jeff becomes a less central character. Like as the show goes on, it becomes more of a true ensemble. I think that's also a big part of the show improving.
Agreed. And of course, Community would have Dean Pelton come in with a beard on, saying that like things are going to be different now.
Yeah. Right. I got to give us, our reference, but Tru Calling when Jason Priestley shows up.
Yes. Yeah, I knew one of us. If you didn't do it, I would not let this call end until one of us said Tru Calling when Jason Priestley shows up.
Yeah.
Now here's the deal. We talked about it. Tru Calling, banger from episode 1.
I don't know. I still think that first episode's pretty bad.
It's a bad pilot. I will also say it's a bad pilot. But I think it was running on all cylinders for me. But when Jason Priestley shows up and we all of a sudden have this like bigger world, it's so much easier to live in. It's so much more fun. And I was so eager for the next episode. And that's like mid-season 1, right? Or almost a little late season 1.
It's like the 14th episode of season 1. So just
fabulous. Over halfway. Just great. And I'm so glad we get to talk about Tru Calling again. It was almost the entire impotence for doing this bonus episode.
Sure. Because then season 2 is like truly, we'll bang this drum forever. But like season 2, those 6 episodes are some of the best 6 episodes. Like that's kind of maybe the best 6 episode run of TV I've ever seen. And most people haven't even ever watched it. So
you should watch it right now. If you've not heard Derek and I talk about it, watch it.
Yeah.
All right. I've got another one that I didn't think would be on your list just because I don't imagine you've seen a lot of it. But I have submitted for our consideration The Big Bang Theory. Okay. And it's Chuck Lorre slop from beginning to end. That's my asterisk on this. Like it never stops being Chuck Lorre slop. But in season 4, they introduce and actually build out an additional set of female characters for Kaylee Cuoco to interact with. And that gives her something to do that isn't interact with these other characters that I do not like. And it does open up opportunities for the show. The show does also become more popular and becomes the sort of like guest star rotunda that it would then become known for. So it grows a very patchy beard. It's not a beard I particularly like looking at, but it's more watchable from season 4 onward than it is in the first 3.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's because of women. So people casting Kaylee Cuoco. I will follow her wherever she goes.
She's great.
but she needed someone else to act with.
That is very funny. It took him until season 4 to be like, what if there are other women on our show?
Yeah, it's not great, Derek. It's not great. And that's the thing is like, I will bash Chuck Lorre because he is like an asshole, but but like he also made Mom, and Mom is kind of like this weird feminist masterpiece. And I don't know how he made that and also made 2.5 Men. It blows my mind.
Yeah. We haven't done a Chuck Lorre show on our podcast yet, have we? I
No.
feel like we've done Chuck Lorre adjacent things.
Yeah, he's close to so many things, Derek.
Right. But I mean, we have to at some point, like, because
Yeah.
he is such a big part of television, whether we like it or not. And I do think there's a big conversation about some of those, because like it's its own conversation, because it's like the kind of thing where it's like, I have to respect his work because it hits for people. Like, it might not be my kind of thing most of the time, but like if it hits for people, it hits for people, and I can't deny that, you know? Yeah. But anyway, that'll be a conversation for a future Gimmicks episode.
Yeah. We'll visit Mr. Lorre's work at some point in time.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a few very Derek specific ones, that I can run through really quick. Well, I think we talked about this on Wallpaper Web Snappers, but the 90s Spider-Man the animated series, I think it is a really interesting marked difference between season 1 and season 2. Mm-hmm. I like season 1 generally. It has famous stuff in season 1. It's not that season 1 is bad, but it is it feels like between season 1 and season 2 it graduates from older era superhero cartoons of like the 80s and early 90s into what we know is sort of modern animated storytelling, which is that season 1 is very episodic. It's just taking old comic supervillain origins and putting them on screen and doing it in a modernized way, but like, you know, it's pretty much what you expect from a superhero cartoon. Spider-Man fights the Scorpion, and you see what the origin of the Scorpion is, and at the end of the episode the Scorpion's beat, and that's it. Season 2 is when it goes really hard on serialized storytelling and sort of interweaving existing comic book characters' stories into one another, and becomes a vastly different show, where it can be like each season can have sort of a thematic through line. And it isn't just taking one-to-one comic book individual issues, but like building in its entirely own world in, again, a very kind of modern serialized kind of way, and having, you know, character relationships that evolve over the course of it. And the rest of the show like follows suit with that. Like season 1 is a weird oddity compared to the rest of the show. And it does feel like the differentiation between like early 90s cartoons and late 90s cartoons, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally picking up on that. I also have a 90s cartoon in here. It's late 90s. So it's the other side from Spider-Man. But I chose Yu-Gi-Oh! To put on here. One of the few animes that I've seen from start to finish.
Damn.
And the reason I do is because in season 2, they sort of reformat the way in which they're telling the story of these battles between grown-ass adults playing a children's card game, so that the rules become more standardized and you, the viewer, can actually understand what's going on. It's all still nonsense, but instead of taking 2/3 of the episode explaining what just happened, you are actually able to follow what is happening, and that allows for a lot more character development, and it is generally seen as when the show sort of reaches its stride, and then, you know, they continue doing it for like 6 more seasons.
Right. That's cool. I never got into Yu-Gi-Oh! So that's really interesting to hear.
There is a Gimmicks episode we could cover. It's a Cup show, so if you ever want, that's can do it.
I'd be down with that. Why not? Yeah. I'll keep on the trend with animated stuff. Another superhero one, but I've been watching through it recently, so that's why it's been on my mind. But Justice League, actually. So I'd been over the last couple of years. It's been over a long span of time because I've taken breaks from it. But like, I was watching through the entire DC animated universe, starting from Batman the animated series through the end of Justice League. And it's really cool seeing that universe evolve. But with Justice League specifically, that is one that I'm rewatching because I watched the shit out of that as it was airing, was excited for it, watched all of it, was really into it from the beginning the entire way through. But I think what's really interesting about it is that it's not that the first season of Justice League is bad, but the first season of Justice League, it's so clear that they aren't really sure what they want this show to be. And Season 2, it's like there's a level of confidence that's there. And then from season 2 of Justice League into Justice League Unlimited, like every season just gets better and better and better each time. And I think that the first season of Justice League, it's very committed to the idea that it's like, We don't know if how familiar these viewers are with these superheroes or with the previous shows in our universe. Like, these days people complain about like, oh, I have to do homework to watch the latest Marvel movie or whatever. And whatever your stance on that is often a feeling with people. And I think with this one, it was almost like the opposite, where the creators were just paranoid that like, we don't want people to feel like they have to do homework. So we're going to treat this show as being very self-contained, even though it's in our universe and it's technically with established characters. We're going to kind of do it as much for new viewers as possible, which I think is smart on one hand, but the show is already kind of catering to older audiences, because like it immediately goes into like political drama and like courtroom drama episodes and shit like that. Like right from the, like literally after their big alien invasion, like 3-parter opener where the team forms, the very next episode is literally like a Green Lantern courtroom drama. So it's like, it immediately gets that stuff and it caters an older audience. It's really great stuff.
Wow.
But they're all very self-contained stories. And I think they just shy away from having like, it's not really based in character relationships within the Justice League characters. It's more just sort of like expanding the world a little bit and having these really self-contained stories in parts of the DC universe that maybe hadn't been explored before. And it's cool, but like, there isn't like, I think it's like cool to see it as sort of like almost an anthology show in a way of the DC universe, but there isn't really like huge character for me watching it. I don't think there's very huge character investment in it. It's more just sort of like, oh, it's cool. I get to learn about like this Wonder Woman stuff that I didn't know about. But then the next episode is like, here's a Green Lantern story that I didn't know about. Like, that's where it lands. I think what they figure out after that season though, is it's sort of like, our viewers are fucking smart enough. I think they're attracting an older viewership too. Like, they're smart enough to know that these are characters that exist in a world and can have evolving relationships. And also these characters that we've created can be like really rich and good. Like, it doesn't, you know, we can do that. So the second season plays a lot more with the ensemble. It actually really builds on the actual like main Justice League characters as characters and builds on their relationships. You start seeing budding romances. You start learning more about them. The relationships evolve over the course of it. And also it plays into the history of this universe they've already built. Like, literally the first episode of season 2 is basically a sequel to the finale of Superman the Animated Series that was aired like 8 years ago, you know?
Wow.
And the confidence of doing it and like balancing, like, we're going to explain enough to you, so if you haven't seen it, you'll know what's going on. But if you have seen it, it'll be very rewarding. And either way, because you're now really embracing the idea that like these are characters that have existed in this world for like a decade at this point, you can play on what it would be like to be Superman 10 years into his career as Superman, who's been through a lot of shit, and like how that trauma that he went through, you know, in his own show affected him now. Like, and then how other superheroes that he's working with have to deal with him dealing with that trauma, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it starts getting a lot more into these ongoing storylines. Then by the time you get to Unlimited, it's like a fully serialized show that's like completely character centric. So I just, the way that it's like, that's another one where it's like, if I recommend that one to someone, there has to be an asterisk of like, the first season is a very different feeling than what I love about Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, which is what starts with season 2.
That's sweet. Yeah, it's so funny because I sometimes feel like one of those people who I want to know everything, and yet anyone who's listened to the podcast knows that my favorite thing in the world is when well-written television gets you up to speed, even if you haven't been there. I mean, yeah, I've praised returning from the commercial break and like synopsizing what's happening. Like, I don't even need to watch the full episode for really well-written television. It will get you there.
Yeah, that's where I hadn't watched much of the Superman cartoon, and I hadn't watched a ton. I watched quite a lot, but not all of Batman either. So watching Justice League and seeing the reference stuff, I was like, I was that viewer who just had to kind of be along for the ride, and it still worked for me. I got it. It's more rewarding when you have seen it, but like, it still worked, you know? So that's when it's like good, but they don't really embrace that until season 2 of Justice League. And I think that's that confidence that's there then persists throughout the rest of the show. That's
sweet. I love that.
Yeah.
I don't have another animated to follow, but I guess there's some computer animation in it. I'm gonna highlight the Seth MacFarlane created The Orville.
Okay.
Season 1 of The Orville is a Seth MacFarlane show. But by the last 4 episodes of season 1, and then definitely season 2, it is an homage and a love letter to Star Trek that features the actor Seth MacFarlane. And by season 3, even though he is the captain of the ship, he is barely in the show. his love for Star Trek remains very present for it, but it stops being a workplace comedy set in space, which it started off being, which is kind of like, it was like Family Guy. I don't know what, it was a Seth MacFarlane show. And then it ends up being a really, really good Star Trek. I think that season 2 is some of the best Star Trek I have ever watched in my entire life.
That's really cool. Yeah. I've heard many things about the Orville. I've heard people who are really into it. I've heard people kind of push back on that too, but either way, I think that it's probably impossible to get away from the Seth MacFarlane of it all, unfortunately, if you're not vibing with that. But yeah, that's really interesting to hear that. Yeah.
And I just also think there's something, I don't know Seth MacFarlane, but there is something to a creator stepping back from something he made in recognition that he is taking away from it.
I feel like American Dad is the same way. Like people are, and I agree, like that's argued as like the best out of the sort of Seth MacFarlane animated universe. That's the best one. And that's the one that he kind of has the least influence in other than voicing characters.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just kind of, I think that if you had said, is this something Seth MacFarlane chooses to do? I would say no, because I sort of don't perceive him in that way. And yet I have evidence of 2 instances of him actually doing kind of the right thing. And maybe sort of I have some prejudice against him and I should resolve that. But
I think, we'll inevitably do a gimmicks episode on a Seth MacFarlane thing. And I think he is a really interesting figure. I think that he has issues and there's like, I think he is problematic in plenty of ways, but I also think that he's like a better person that I think he has given credit that he's a better person. I think his reputation makes him be perceived as because of the work that he has created.
I agree.
But I think there's interesting things to be said about Seth MacFarlane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll save it for our eventual Family Guy episode before you and I both quit the podcast.
Sure. No, I want to do a Family Guy episode actually. So like, I think
bring it on, Derek. Bring it on. Yeah, I thought we were both dreading this.
No, I'd be excited to talk about Family Guy because I think it's a really interesting TV show.
Yeah.
And there's some really good gimmicks episodes we can do for it, to be honest.
Sweet.
Yeah, I say that as someone I don't love Family Guy, but I think it would be really interesting to talk about.
But like, neither of us loved Happy Days. Like that's the thing is like,
true.
There's important television that doesn't work for Derek and I.
Yeah, sure. Just mention Orville. Speaking of space, this is definitely not on your list either. Power Rangers in space. So it's a weird one because like Power Rangers, they're kind of like also each season is kind of a different show, but it's also like, it is also a seasonal progression. And in the first 6 years, especially, it was one show with different seasons that were like interlinked, like stories, flowing into season to season. And I do think that even though the height of the show's popularity obviously was when it was Mighty Morphin Power Rangers early on, it doesn't really become like where the Power Rangers fandom that exists comes from is what Power Rangers becomes starting with Power Rangers in space. Like it is a sort of an insane difference between the previous season, which is Power Rangers Turbo, and Power Rangers in Space. It is a wildly different show that like embraces serialization and character development and characterization and like romances and like complex villains in a way that was not ever present in like the first 5 seasons of the show. And again, it's like the popularity of it was waning in the mainstream, but if you're following all of it, it's like the show is sort of growing up with you. And then this sets the template for what the show is going forward. But the structure of it in like, we're introducing a sort of a new world, new status quo, with complex villains and characters that are going to develop over the course of it, usually headlined by a Red Ranger who has like the biggest character arc. That is the format that the show has going forward.
Nice.
And it's interesting how different that season is from everything preceding it. And then that is what the show is for a long time after that.
So just then as a point of curiosity, because this is a world that I have recently become more aware of. Mm-hmm. Was that present in the Sentai, but it wasn't present in the adaptation? Oh, okay.
Yeah. The Sentai, I mean, that's the thing is that the Sentai was always like complete, like, each series was a completely different series, unrelated to the last one.
Okay.
And what made Power Rangers unique and it's always been unique, is that in this case it all exists in the same universe, even when they're like standalone seasons, more or less. Like it's still in the sort of larger universe of it. And up to this point, through like the first, especially with Power Rangers in Space, that was the 6th season. That is still like the previous season ends with the characters either losing their powers or having to, fight a new villain. And that's what starts the new season. So like In Space begins with the characters from the previous season going into space and then getting new powers, basically. Right. So that's what makes it different. Sentai, it's a complete reset every single season in a completely different universe. So it was truly like season 6 of an ongoing TV show in this case, whereas the Sentai was not like that. So the sort of growth, like Sentai also has ups and downs and periods people think this is a better period than others, but like it is not even remotely one-to-one with Power Rangers.
Yeah. That is, it just adds another layer of complexity around this whole idea of something like coming into its own, because this is a series that like coming into its, I think there are probably lots of markers that you could place of the series coming into its own, into a different era, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
That's cool. That's really cool. I did have Power Rangers ? In my list of Derek predictions.
Yeah.
But I did not have a specific on there. And I totally missed Spider-Man. That's a David miss. I could have that should have been a gimme on here.
Sure. Well, I mean, but like that's really, for me, the only example of like other Spider-Man shows are either good all the way through or bad all the way through or don't change enough. I know, like, I think there's some argument, like Ultimate Spider-Man, I think has some argument around it, but I don't have as strong of feelings on that one. The 90s show, I think it's like that's the one that makes the most sense to me out of all of them.
Yeah. Well, I've only got one left on my sort of brainstorm list, and it's Frasier. And I actually, when we sort of gave ourselves this assignment, I went back and I listened to our Frasier coverage, and I can't believe I didn't talk about this, but Frasier as a sitcom doesn't introduce the concept of farce until midway through season 2.
Oh,
and
interesting.
Anyone who listened to us talk about it know that how important the farce was to me in Seinfeld, or in Frasier. God, you talked about B movie earlier, and all I can think about is Jerry Seinfeld. But Frasier needed farce to continue to be successful, and I think it's what it is most remembered for, is all the ways that it used farce successfully. And it's sort of shocking to think that it took so long for them to find the secret sauce that really made the series work.
Yeah, that totally. I didn't realize that it was that different at the beginning. That's really interesting. Yeah. What is the show when it doesn't have farce? I guess it's just like a typical sitcom.
It was mostly him stooping ladies,
Cool. Okay. Got it. I have a couple of ones left that I think are going to have crossover with you. And it's less like for me personally and more just general TV ones that made sense to acknowledge. But like The Simpsons is always in that conversation, right? Like season 1 of The Simpsons is a totally different show from season 2 forward. And then once Bart Mania fades, it becomes an even more different show. Like,
agreed.
Season 1, 2, and 3 of The Simpsons are all kind of completely different shows in a way that have some crossover for sure. But just very different tonally. Season 1, I think in particular, because, it's not Alf Clausen doing the music. So like just the entire sound and vibe of the show is also different.
So weird
and really
to
off.
watch. It's so weird to watch.
Yeah. Like, and it's not even like there are episodes in season 1 that I like, but like there's another one where it's like, I have no issues. If you want to tell someone like who's never watched The Simpsons to not start with season 1, I think that's 100% fair, because it's just not indicative of what the show ever is after the first 13 episodes.
Yeah. Well, or if somebody was like, oh, I really want to watch The Simpsons, should I go back to the Tracy Ullman shorts? I would say absolutely not.
No,
they are historically fascinating.
Yeah.
But to just watch them and not be on the Tracy Ullman show is useless to you.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And then there's a little bit of an asterisk, but X-Files I think is an interesting case, because I think season 1 has wonderfully good episodes in it. Like there's really great stuff in the first season of the X-Files, but I do think that the story of like Gillian Anderson got pregnant, had to leave the show, and they had to sort of had to leave the show temporarily and had to write around that. And then they end up writing the storyline that completely like fully permanently integrates Scully into their ongoing mythology.
Right.
Like that was that blew the show wide open, because suddenly it's not the story of this one guy with his missing sister and then an alien invasion plot and his, and his sidekick, basically. It's like, no, this is a story about these two people who are so incredibly permanently interlinked together and to this larger ongoing like conspiracy story. Like that changes the show so radically. And again, I love a lot of the first season, and I think the mythology stuff is good in the first season. So many standalones are bangers. It's a really well-made show out the gate, but the drive of the show of Mulder and Scully and their relationship to each other and why these two characters like are so inseparable for the rest of the show and trust each other when they trust no one else. That comes from the second season. That doesn't start until season 2. And that I think is when the show becomes what it is.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agreed. I had X-Files originally on my list and then I couldn't like figure out what it was. And it's you reminding me about writing around Anderson's pregnancy. And yeah. Just, you know what? Honestly, people listening, that's how you write around an actor being pregnant, not Angel season 4.
4. Yeah.
4. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot going on with that.
That's what I'm saying.
Listen to our Angel episode focusing on Cordelia, a character that had a wonderful, perfect ending. They did everything right with. It had nothing to do with real world consequences of Joss Whedon being a misogynist piece of shit. Yeah. And the only other one I wanted to call out, this isn't a real answer, but like I've been watching through DS9 recently and I just finished season 3 and I am seeing the show like changing into what I know is the reason people love DS9 so much. Like, and it's been fun watching that happen and being able to actually see like, I can tell that this is a thing that is changing right before my eyes right now for the better. So that's been interesting.
All right. I've got 2 on my list that were on my Derek predictions. One of which I just thought, Derek will probably say this, I won't say it, but one of us should say it. It's Parks and Recreation.
Oh my God. I meant to have, you know what? I meant to have that on my list and totally forgot to put it on it, but you're right. That is a perfect one. Yeah.
Bringing on Adam Scott and Rob Lowe was necessary for the show to become what it would become. And it became excellent after that.
Yeah. That is a fantastic answer. I know a lot of people would say The Office and stuff like that, but I think Parks and Rec, it is so stark how different it is between season 1, season 2 and season 3, like 1,000%.
Yeah. Mark Brandanowitz. It was fun to say your name, but otherwise go home. And then this was a question mark because I actually fell off of the show, but I think you have watched it. And everyone I know who has watched it has said, oh, if you just would have kept going, you would have really jived on it. And so I had on my list of Derek predictions, Chuck.
Oh yeah. That's a good answer. How far into it did you get? Did you watch like the first season?
Probably 4 episodes, Derek.
Yeah. That is a case. No, that is a really good one. Cause I liked the show from the get go. It's frustrating. Cause I actually really loved that show a lot. And now it's like so cursed because it's Zachary Levi and Adam Baldwin in it.
Oh, well, yeah.
So it's like really hard to go back to now, unfortunately. But I really like that show from the get go, but it is season 2. Like the first season is like 13 episodes and it happened like during the writer's strike too, I think. So it's like, there's a little bit of weirdness there. I think they were figuring it out. It was very much like the guy who did the OC is kind of doing a spy thing. And that's like all it was really. Like, I think they were really struggling with like, how much is like a soapy drama thing with like fun nerd references. And I don't think they figured out how to do nerd references very well in the first season either. It was kind of obnoxious. That probably is a thing, honestly, throughout the whole show that maybe doesn't age well, but at the time I think it worked. But season 2, I think they really figure out the romance between Zachary Levi and Yvonne Strahovski. Like the Chuck and Sarah romance in that show is really, really well done. It's like one of the few straight romances that I will root for and ship. Ooh. It's really well done. And that really doesn't, they just kind of go for like the second season, they just, from the first episode, they just go for it. And it's sort of like, we're just going to stop playing the will they, won't they, and actually make it clear that they like each other. And the problem is more other bullshit gets in the way of them actually getting together. That's what they play on more in the second season. And that really, I think, forms the foundation of the show. And I think they just start writing the spy stuff better. Like all the spy stories are way more interesting in season 2 than they were in season 1. I agree. I don't know. I haven't revisited Chuck since the real life people started being shitty. Well, Adam Baldwin was always kind of shitty, but Zachary Levi like really took a fucking dive off a cliff. And that makes it really hard to watch. And I do think that some of the referential geek culture humor, I think maybe would be way more annoying now than it was in like 2010.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you would vibe with that, But I think that you would appreciate the show a lot more if you keep watching it. I do think it's a good solid like 5-season run that ends on a really fascinating note. So yeah, that's an interesting one. Yeah, we'll have to do Chuck one day, I think, because I think there's a lot of cultural conversation stuff we can have, and I would like a reason to rewatch it, or at least some of it, even though I'm a little bit afraid to, because again, really loved it. I don't know if it ages very well now, unfortunately.
What I have learned from doing this with you is that I don't mind talking about things where there are terrible people, because then it just gives you and me a chance to talk about how terrible they are on record for 30 minutes so that it is in the public record.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. That's very true. Zachary Levi, we're coming for you, man.
We're coming for you. Adam Baldwin, people have done it before and we will do it again.
Yeah. Adam Baldwin was like, I think he was already known to be shitty when he was on the show. So like, already it was kind of like a little bit dicey. And now it's just like, well, there's like just no excuse anymore.
Ooh, Baldwins. Yikes. The whole family has just got some stuff to deal with these days.
I don't think he's related to the other Baldwins. I don't think he's
really?
Baldwin. Is he? I could be wrong. Hold on. We got to confirm this live right now.
I don't
want to be wrong about this.
They're all white dudes. I don't know.
I don't think Adam Baldwin is related to the Baldwins.
Oh, well, that's incredible. Sorry for lumping you in with other problematic people.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I guess if your last name is Baldwin.
Just be on notice.
Yeah.
Incredible. Derek, this was so much fun. I'm glad we did this. What a balm to the soul after Happy Days. And
it wasn't that bad. Come on.
It really wasn't that bad.
What are you talking about?
It's just this was like so much fun just to talk about random episodes of television, some of which that I don't think we'll get to for the podcast for a while, if at all. And so I think it's kind of fun. And anytime that we can both talk about Tru Calling again, is a cup filling moment for me.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll find a way to work it into everything we ever do if we can.
Yes. Well, we've had a great time with you all on this episode. If you would like to continue to show us some support, you can always drop us a little tip at ko-fi.com/gimmicks-podcast. And if you want to follow what Derek and I are up to, you can find the podcast on social media at gimmicks-pod. And you can rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get these sorts of things on all your podcast platforms. And I guess until next episode, friends, keep being weird.
She's